All right, if we could take our seats, I'd like to introduce our next guest, Mr. Wilhelm Joseph, the Executive Director of Maryland Legal Aid Bureau, past Director of North Mississippi Rural Legal Services. He's here to talk about challenging controversy, North Mississippi Rural Legal Services' quest to provide effective civil legal services in an era of federal funding from legal services. I'm sure he's got a lot to talk to us. Please give him a warm hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
I will not respect the agenda, and I will do something that I was inspired to do late yesterday and early this morning. Let me say thank you to the Robert Kayak School of Law at Ole Miss for hosting this. Thank you for North Mississippi Rural Legal Services commemorating its 50th anniversary. Thank you for a progressive governor from Mississippi. I never thought I would be ever able to say that in my lifetime. Former Governor Musgrove. Thank you and welcome to friends and guests and all people I work, old colleagues and old professors and old bosses. The last 3 days of my life have been busy. On Wednesday, I spoke to the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. On Tuesday evening, I was at a reception at the Supreme Court hosted by Justice Kennedy regarding access to justice. In the presence of the newly nominated Justice Garland, supposed to be Garland. That morning, we were in the White House, on a White House forum on legal services with 7 chief justices from several different states, 5 or 6 CEOs from the biggest corporations, including the General Counsel of Microsoft, and all kinds of folks. So it's a lot of stuff been going on in my head, my brains, and most of all, I haven't been on my job. They ain't too happy. I tell a story about my leaving Trinidad in 1965 and coming to Mississippi. The story is something that someone told me. There's a story in the Bible, I believe, about Jacob's ladder. I think Jacob was a twin brother of Esau, who was the twin sons of Isaac. Is that correct? And Isaac was the son of Abraham. And Jacob and Esau had a little struggle of who would inherit the goods of the daddy. And somehow Esau had been born a few minutes before Jacob. Well, they were twins. But Jacob somehow got Esau to allow him to be the inheritor of all the wealth. And Esau wasn't happy. And Jacob thought that Esau would be coming after him. And he did not know how he would escape. But he had a dream. And in that dream, he saw a ladder going to heaven. And that was going to be his escape. So there became an understanding, a statement of climbing up Jacob's ladder when you're going into heaven or whatever. Well, 1970, 71, I'm a second year or third year law student at Ole Miss. I'm in New York City to give a speech at the Harvard Club. A young man in the elevator, the head of the Carnegie Corporation, it turned out to be, had a conversation with me in the elevator. He said, "Who are you?" "Wilhelm Joseph." "Where are you?" "Ole Miss." He said, "You have an accent. How do you get to Ole Miss?" Well, I left Trinidad, I went to Valley State, I went to Ole Miss Law School. And he looked at me and said, wow, that sounds like climbing down Jacob's ladder. Another story related to my education, I was born in the British system of Trinidad. The proudest you can be about your education in the British system is to go to school at Oxford, Cambridge. So it happens in my own life that I did have a short stint. I got a master's degree at Harvard Kennedy School. So when I go home among the British citizens, I proudly say I have been educated at Cambridge and Oxford. That's a true story. I'll tell you another true story. I used it a few times at giving a talk about international affairs. Someone said, how are you qualified to talk about international affairs? I said, let me tell you, unlike Sarah Palin, I have lived in 3 countries: Trinidad, the USA, and Mississippi. Don't tell me I don't know about international affairs. Being back at Ole Miss and Oxford and Mississippi as a whole fills me with different kinds of emotions, all kinds of emotions. As I said before, I have 2 children born right here in the Lafayette County Hospital. And these emotions can complicate this assignment because things are going through your mind as you try to speak. Some of these emotions include feelings of friendship, camaraderie, old struggle, success stories, disappointments, victories. But I would not let disappointments be the dominant factor in my thinking. I think those who know me know I tend to be a little more on the positive side, so I'm always with hope. No anger, maybe a little passion, but lots of hope. And hope is what brought me here today at this rostrum. And I often look at a quotation from Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, "We must accept finite disappointments, but never lose infinite hope." So, Governor, when I asked you the question, I was looking for that little window and ray of hope for the future of the people and the children and the grandchildren of people in this room, that one day leaders in Mississippi will get it, as they say. The talk I'm supposed to give is about the challenge and controversies. But I really want to talk about something else. I want to talk about some of what you saw today and heard today. Enlightened people. Enlightened people. And among you, there are many enlightened people. Enlightened people have been able to bring us along through many difficulties. The important syllables in the word enlighten, I believe, is light. Light. Enlightened people bring light to the darkness. I think enlightenment is an essential ingredient of courage. To be courageous requires you to be enlightened. There are many enlightened, courageous people that we think about. You're in the South, and people know that Jesus was enlightened and most courageous. Dr. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Fannie Lou Hamer, Harding Carter, Medgar Evers, Josh Morse, the dean of the law school at the University of Mississippi that Mike spoke about, who admitted me to law school, was enlightened and courageous. Bob Kayat, whom I knew while I was in law school, I underestimated completely until I had a conversation with him many years ago. He was smart, enlightened, and quite courageous. Governor Musgrove, John Bradley, Alvin Chambliss, John Britton, Mike Tristan, and many of you, Stan Taylor, all these names you heard today. Enlightened, courageous people. I'm not going to take a long time, but I'm going to give two stories, basically. One is personal, the other is not so personal. And these stories are really about how enlightened people can make a difference, maybe even save your life. The personal story, the way I will tell it, I will read some excerpts from a couple of letters. I have many of them, but just a couple. These are items from the file of the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission, who revealed their files after about 27 years also of years of litigation. Listen carefully. June 30, 1969. Written by Dean Joshua H. M. Morse III to Wilhelm Joseph. Dear Mr. Joseph, Professor Thomas Edmonds has advised me that he interviewed you on his recent trip to the Clio Institute at Duke University Law School. Professor Edmonds feels that you are an outstanding law school prospect, and after reviewing your record, I agree with his evaluation. Let me pause. I am a little kid from Trinidad. Came from abject poverty. Got a track scholarship to go to Valley State. Many struggles there. Applied to law schools, Harvard and Ole Miss. I'm feeling very good. And then he further said, our scholarship committee has considered your application and has authorized me to offer you a law school scholarship which will supplement your Clio scholarship so as to provide you with a total of $2,500 per year. That's a lot of money back then. I mean, I think the law school tuition was $300. So I'm feeling really good. June 30. Oh, June 31st, 1969. 30 days later, follow-up letter. New Dean, J.W. Bunkley, Jr. Dear Mr. Joseph, I am afraid that Dean Morse, in his letter of June 30, 1969, misled you. At this time, the law school does not have any scholarship funds. Therefore, any funds which you obtain must be from Clio and the Carnegie Foundation. I sincerely regret the misleading statement in Dean Morse's letter of June 30. It's connected. So other things going on, we find out. March 20, 1969, sometime before that, a letter from W. Webb Burke, the director of the Sovereignty Commission, writes to the Honorable James O. Eastland, United States Senate, Washington, D.C. Dear Senator Eastland, the members of the State Sovereignty Commission are greatly concerned over the radical student activity which has taken place at some of our state colleges and universities during recent months. Particular concern is felt over the action at Mississippi Valley State College, Idabina, Mississippi, where the leader of the activity was Wilhelm Joseph, a student from Trinidad. Inquiry was made by Governor John Bell Williams through Congressman Charles Griffin as to whether there existed a possibility that this foreign student could be deported. So Eastland sends that to his staff. He was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee overseeing immigration at the time. The staff write back from the Subcommittee on Immigration to Senator James Eastland, United States Stationery. Mr. W. Ware Burke of the State Sovereignty Commission, Jackson, Mississippi, has requested that you, Senator, give consideration to introducing legislation that would provide for deportation in any case where a foreign student is found guilty of participation in undesirable and unlawful activity on the campus of any tax-supported institution. Under present law, this is what put the chill to my body in retrospect. Under present law, an alien who is in the United States in temporary status, such as a student, is not deportable so long as he maintains such status. However, it has been held that one who has been imprisoned following conviction for a crime has breached his status, since he could not pursue it while in jail. Expulsion from school would also constitute a breach of status. Once an alien can no longer comply with the conditions of his admission, he will become subject to deportation. Guess what happened? Soon thereafter, expelled and arrested. Any connection?
Yep.
And here came the enlightened people, the Jim Lewises of the world, the Armand Bertners, the Mike Christers, and the lawyers who say, no way, Jose. And this had been going on for quite a while. It turns out my earlier expulsion at Valley State was part of a conspiracy. I got reinstated in college. 800 students were arrested at Valley State. The first name they called was Wilhelm Joseph. With a plan. This is part of the story. The files are thick. If I tell you that somebody was following me and reporting on my activities as an undergrad and law student every day, it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. He went to the house of John Britton. He went to the house of Mary Jones. We think he's going to marry Mary Jones. Oh, he traveled in his car from Idabina to Jackson with a white nun. All of these are, this is the governor, lieutenant governor, senators at the highest level communicating with a little poor student who's barely out of being barefoot trying to make it because he was registering folks to vote and saying this plantation mentality that is imposed on people of color is wrong, and he will fight it with everything. And it meant, at any point in time, if he succeeded, I'm out of here. Wasted time, no education. That's the personal story. The next story, it brings me close to the end, is a story about North Mississippi Rural Legal Services, and all of us in the room. You heard this morning all the stories about the litigation and the controversies and the struggle. I was the director for about 7 years. I didn't plan to give you a long history, but it was quite controversial. During my tenure, it's when many more native-born black-skinned lawyers got involved. Solomon Osborne, Willie Perkins, and a bunch of folks. And we turned them loose. We turned them loose. To the point we got criticized as being Goliath, going after little Davis. We're talking about, as you mentioned this morning, cities and counties and jurisdiction that wouldn't hire a person of color in any job. Exclusion from juries, brutality by the police, denial of your right to assemble and speak. We had to confront the Ku Klux Klan in full regalia. Every weekend in Tupelo, I made sure I took my little kids at age 3 or 4 to see that. With their guns. We had to undergo investigations of what we are doing, brought on by the members of Congress from Mississippi to see who we're representing ineligible clients. That is what was going on back then. This program needs enlightened people right now. This program is in trouble, okay? And that is why I want to spend my last few minutes. It's an inspiration that came from 2 different places in the last 24 hours. The Federal Legal Services Corporation started in 1974. The idea was to fund legal services programs in every state and protect from political interference. That has not succeeded. The Legal Service Corporation has become the football in Congress. In 1980, the total funding of the Legal Service Corporation was $321 million. 1980. If you accumulate and aggregate 2% interest on that from 1980 to 2016, in current dollars, we're talking about, it should be around $1 billion. The funding for Legal Service Corporation is still around $300 and something million. It go up, it go down. It went to $400 million under President Clinton, and back down to $295 in his administration, and up and down, and up and down, and up and down. Here's the point. North Mississippi Rural Legal Services depends almost entirely, not entirely, 74 to 75% relies on legal services funds. You cannot run an effective business from a source like that. It's going down and up and down and up, when inflation and the cost of doing business is going up every single year. In Maryland, where I am fortunate to be, only 15% of our budget comes from federal government. So that happens to be the lowest of all 165 programs in the country. we get $4 million from the federal government. And we raise $25 million in the state of Maryland. You say, how? Enlightened, courageous people. Chief justices, members of the legislature, the Bar Association, the lawyers, the big law firms, the managing partners, they make a difference. You need something special here in this state. Something special needs to happen. The impact of what I'm talking about makes me sad. When I left here in 1982 as the director of North Mississippi Rural Legal Services, there were 12 offices. 12 offices. One of my biggest jobs and most proud accomplishment here was spending 20 hours a day and night figuring out how to expand from 5 offices that Mike Pfister spoke about to 12. We added Lexington, Greenville, Clarksdale, all over. We had more attorneys, a vigorous paralegal program, training, travel, retreats every year, annual retreats to invigorate staff, dynamism, hard work. That's all threatened and all gone. The people of North Mississippi Rural Legal Services jurisdiction, the people are still very poor. Where do you think they rank in terms of poverty among the 50 states? Last. They're still here. They still need services. Lots of services. Let me tell you something. If I had the opportunity, I do this all the time. Think of a working mother, working full-time, 40 hours a week, making minimum legal wage of $8.25 an hour. Let us suppose something happens to the man in the house or the woman in the house, which often is the way our clients come to us. A tragedy has occurred. One of the breadwinners has gotten very sick, or disabled, or in prison, or whatever. And a family, think of a family of 3. One single person and 2 kids. 1 kid 4 and 1 kid 9. Let's call them Olivia and Roger. Any budget you do, that's a modest budget for them to live on, will amount to $20,000 or more. I call it, if you want to try it with some pens, try it. Call it the 86421 budget. $800, we say, for a 2-bedroom house in most cities. That's cheap. You can't get it. That's cheap for poor people. $800. $600 to cover child care and some household items. Keep a count. 8 and 6, how much is that? 14. Let's say $400 a month for food. And throw in clothing. Because they're poor people, they have to get clothes almost free. At 14 and 4, how much is that? 18. Let's throw in $200 for transportation and maybe some utilities, maybe a telephone, whatever the case might be, to stay in touch with people. How much is that? 20. Let's pay $100 for miscellaneous and the unseen. $2,100. Times 12, how much is that? $25,000. Tell me, is any item luxurious? $25,000. Think of this woman. She's working full-time with 2 kids. When you have 2 kids of 4 and 9, how often do they get sick? Now, at $8.25 an hour, the gross take-home pay, or the net, is just about $15,000. You all tell me right now, how a full-time working mother bringing home $15,000 a year can afford a $25,000 budget. Let me hear what happens. Talk to me. What happens? You double up with some family or friend. You go to work and leave your 4-year-old daughter with some stranger and you don't know who's coming to your house. You take a chance at night for a second job for a few hours at the local hotel or something, and your child wakes up and walks outside. Here comes social services. Or you do what most people do. You forego a couple of months of the rent. They're coming to evict you. You make an arrangement to pay the rent, but you don't pay the light bill for 2 months. They turn your lights off. This is the life of a full-time working person in this country. That's like being between a rock and a friggin' rock. But it's the real life that people are living every day. And this is a notion that exists, that these people are poor because they are making bad choices and they're lazy, etc. Let's take it a little further. So if the child gets sick for several days a year, and she stays home to care for her child, does she get paid sick leave? No. Income drops. And a couple of times, she's running late. She won't take care of a child. You go to work too late, too often, what happens? You lose your job. You think she can get a job the next day? It takes a while to get a job. Income drops. So, in all of that situation, little Roger is still a little smart boy. He comes home, ironically, and here's a little fiction. He comes home on his birthday, and his report card has all A's. Mama is happy. She's proud. She would like to give little Roger a little gift for encouragement. She doesn't have a penny. But she's walking past the dollar store, and temptation and the desire to work with little Roger gets to her, and she puts a small gift in her pocket. And she doesn't get past the door. She's now caught up in the criminal justice system. Happens every day. That is the life of the client. There are clients like that in North Mississippi. There are people struggling to make it. This place has to survive. I go back to Martin Luther King again. I always look at King's statements, one of those enlightened, courageous people. And he says this, and he's saying this about you and about me. He says, the ultimate measure of a man is not where you stand at times of comfort and convenience, but it's really where you stand in times of challenge and controversy. So I'm coming to the end, and I hope you're getting the gist of my story. Where you stand, where do you stand in this time of challenge and controversy. I want to invite some enlightened, courageous people here, and some you know who might not be here, to participate in a noble venture. I've spoken to no one about it. It's at 3 o'clock in the morning. I got up. I said, I'm going to do this. And you all pardon me. That venture is for us to begin today to find a way to rejuvenate, expand the financial resources of this most important legal aid program. You heard this morning by Trista and Britain about this being, if not the best, one of the top 3 legal aid programs in the entire 50 states of the United States of America. So I want you to contemplate what you're going to do about it. Here's one idea. It's a simple idea to build upon, reject, or whatever. I'm thinking about some kind of special fund. We can call it the North Mississippi Rural Legal Services Justice Fund. We can call it the Morse Trista McClellan Fund. We could call it the Friends of North Mississippi Rural Legal Services Fund. But the idea is we start that fund, we figure out some way to administer it and get this thing going. So I'm coming to the end. And again, it's a story behind this. This quotation I'm going to use to close out came to me in an interesting way. Yesterday afternoon, I landed in the Memphis airport. I'm getting my baggage. Some way and somehow, I got into a conversation with a lady. She asked me where I was going or coming from. I said, I'm going to Oxford, Mississippi. She said, wow, I'm going there too. I said, I left Baltimore. She said, wow, I left Annapolis, Maryland. She said, oh, why are you going to Oxford? I said, to speak at the 50th anniversary of North Mississippi Rural Legal Services. I'm a graduate of Ole Miss Law School. She said, what year? I said, I was there from 69 to 72. She said, wow, I graduated in 1971. And I'm going to see my sorority sister from back then. So you know she talks about a sorority sister from 1971. You know what she looks like. So I said, remarkable, remarkable. She was friendly. We exchanged little words. She talked about her perspective. And it affected me. So I landed in Oxford. Before I even checked in the hotel, I said, let me try to drive around and find my way around. I wanted to see something funny. There's a fraternity house that has 2 lions. And back in the day, every night, some vandals changed the color of the lions. They painted red, green, blue. The first stop sign I came to, guess who I see walking on the campus? The same woman with her friend. Right by the old law school. And she said, where are you going? I said, I'm trying to find the law school. She said, I can't tell you where it is. It's around there somewhere. Let me show you. She and her friend jumped in the car. I said, in 1969, if she and her friend had jumped in my car, driving around the campus, I think I might be charged for attempted rape, if not or something. But she was very interesting. I could tell you what her name is, but I wasn't authorized to do so. I'll leave it like it is. But here's what she did. We drove around for about almost an hour. She brought me to the law school. She asked questions. She showed me here and showed me there. We talked to we saw John Bradley in the law school. We talked to him. It was interesting. And then on my way out, taking her back to where she was, she said, you know, I saw a quotation on the wall of a local restaurant, and I would like it to be part of your speech tomorrow. I said, why? She said, you know, many of the things you're saying to me, you're looking back, and you're not looking at the future. So you know me, I didn't take it easily. I said, well, what are all these signs I see on cars? Hell no, we ain't forgetting. Is that forward or backward? And I related some other stories about how some folks are still looking backwards in Mississippi. But I said, no, she's right. And she said, this quote is from Margaret Mead. But she could not remember the exact words of the quotation. She had the gist of it. She called the restaurant. She got somebody on the phone and made them read the quote. And she wrote it down on a little back of a business card and gave it to me. And I pledged I will do it. And here what it says. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world indeed. It is the only thing that ever has. A small group of people can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has changed the world. So you are a small group of people. I'm not asking you to change the world, but I'm asking you to be a part of changing the status quo of what we got here, so that someday, down the line, in another gathering, maybe for the 75th or the 100th, I plan to be there for the 100th, we could be saying better things. So here's what I'm going to do. Crazy me. I haven't for my children nor my wife. I would like people in the audience to think about their bank account and say to myself, if I make a substantial pledge to a fund yet to be created, maybe one time or over a couple of years, 3 years, 5 years, would that pledge deny me or my children of essentials of housing, food, clothing, medicine? If it does, then don't think about it. Ask yourself what you think you can do when you think about the people we're trying to help. I'm going to make a modest pledge. I want to tell you a little story before that, though. Before I tell you my modest pledge, and I'm going to end there. About 8 years ago, the staff at Maryland Legal Aid and the board went into a needs assessment project. And they did a strategic planning based on the results. And they came up with a conclusion that the main concerns of poor people were obvious. Job, housing, health care, education. Basic human needs. Basic human needs. In 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, in a well-known speech known as the Four Freedoms speech, if you have never read it, each of you take a note. The Four freedom of speech. And he said, in his speech, it was written, that every American should enjoy these 4 freedoms. The night of his speech, he crossed off the word American, and the actual copy exists in Library of Congress. And he put people in the world. Every person in the world should enjoy the 4 freedoms. 1941. The World War I had been gone. 75 million people had been killed. The Great Recession of the 1929 and 30 had just gone down. Countries were building armaments to fight and kill each other. And he said it didn't make any sense. We should be working together for the 4 freedoms. Freedom of speech. Freedom from want. Freedom of religion. And freedom from fear. 4 years later, he explained in detail what he meant by freedom from want. He said every person in the world should have a right to health care, nutrition, housing, etc. That became the core of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. He was dead by that time, but his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, was actively involved in that effort. So this world agreement, there is world, universal, international agreement that basic human needs equal basic human rights. So when you make your pledge, in your mind or whatever, we are subscribing to a higher ideal, not planning for war or killing anybody, but implementing and supporting a program who tries to advance through the legal process basic human needs of our citizens. My modest pledge, I'm not a rich man, I got paid very well. I'm going to start off with saying I will contribute, starting next month, $1,000 a year for the first 3 years to that fund. And I'm not going to sit down until somebody in the audience tells me they're going to do the same thing or more. So I'll stay here all night. I will stay here all night. And the program will freeze unless somebody says, I can match that easily. I see one hand, John Bradley, thank you, sir. I see 2 hands. 500 a year. All right, take that information down. Anybody else? All we're doing is starting this thing. We want to say, we are starting this thing. We're going to organize ourselves. We're going to use all the contacts we have. And we're going to do something special. Enlighten people. Few people who can change the world indeed. We're going to turn this thing upside down, all around. I guarantee it. Governor Musgrove, you know people. People know you. I want you to think about it. What can you do to help this? You may be part of that fund. That fund hasn't been created. That fund can have an independent board. All volunteers. Lucius Edwards, what's your pledge? $5,000? 500? All right. I want to hear some more dollars. Back up here.
Eddie Reberg, $500.
Five from Terry. All right. You see the score? $1,000 from Collins. Roy Campbell, State Bar President. $1,000. I have time to tell you, for the first State Bar President, I didn't just go. Anyway, so.
You want me to match you?
Absolutely.
I'll match you.
The governor matches my $1,000 a year for 3 years at least. I haven't heard John Brennan do anything yet. He just He's gonna come something aggressive. I know that. And Mike just is on the room, so his wife will tell him that he already finished. Okay.
I just wanted for me, you can ask him.
So, I have come to the end of my talk. You have 1 minute. Anybody in here who has a comment, please do so, please. Any comments? Any reaction? Oh, one more thing. I have volunteered under the auspices of the Legal Service Corporation to make at least 3 visits a legal vehicle to come back here to help this process along. I volunteer that.